Helping Seniors Television, all about improving quality of life for seniors. If you're a senior, know a senior, or plan to be a senior, then this show is for you. It's all about helping you develop your own aging plan so you can age actively and with dignity. Helping Seniors Television from the Helping Seniors Network of information, education, and resources.
I'm Kerry Fink with Helping Seniors Television, and I'm with Helping Seniors of Brevard. And what a pleasure it is to have you with us today for Helping Seniors TV. I have the privilege of sitting in for our president and founder, Joe Steckler. Helping Seniors of Brevard, as you know, is a Florida nonprofit organization, and we're dedicated to helping you develop your own aging plan. We run the county's senior information helpline. I'm going to give you that number here in a moment. But it's a free call, and each month we help between 75 and 150 people who call in with all kinds of issues, everything from transportation to legal to medical to housing. You name it, we've probably taken a call on it. And we're fortunate in being able to connect those people to resources that are going to help move them to the next level with all kinds of aging situations. And so that phone number is area code 321-473-7770. It's 321-473-7770. And the other part of what we do with Helping Seniors of Brevard is we work diligently to get information into your hands that will help you create your own aging plan. And I want to repeat this because it's so important. When we're young and growing up and we're in school, the grown-ups tell us that we're supposed to be thinking about our career. We need to decide if we're going to go to college, we're going to go to a trade school, we're going to learn a vocation, or what is our plan that we're going to do for our work in our life. And then as we get a little bit farther down the road, they say, well, what is your plan for you? You need to be thinking about saving for retirement, or saving if you want to send your kids to college, or you need to save up and get a house, or the different things that they tell us along the way. So we have a plan for that. Then as we get older, the question is, as we get to our retirement years, do we have an aging plan? Do we have a thought or a direction in mind for where we're going as we get older in our years? And that's one of the things that I'm so excited we're going to get to talk about today, is things that help you along the way with your aging plan. And today, our special guest is a good friend, Troy Denault with Soter, LLC. Welcome, Troy.
Thank you, Kerry. Thanks for having me today.
And we're going to get deeper into the whole topic of what you do, but I want to say you're a like-minded person who has really spent a lot of time concerned with helping people get their aging plans together. We've worked together over the years on a project called Knowledge College for Aging, which has been exactly that. It's been about getting people ahead of their aging curve, because as you say, with all of your experience in helping seniors through different living situations, home health care, and all those, you've really found it to be beneficial to help people look ahead rather than just simply react to a crisis. And I want to maybe start by welcoming you to the show and getting you to comment a little bit about that.
Well, thanks, Kerry, and again, thanks for having me. Yeah, just over time, just over the years and in working with a lot of families, you know, you generally, it's when you start to deal with aging and you start to deal with senior living and you start to look at home care and you start to, as we continue to age and start to have care needs in general, a lot of times families are very, very resistant or wanting to look or to try to be proactive or to get some information, get educated about what's in front of them, because aging is, we don't want to talk about that. We're going to be Peter Pan. We're going to live forever. And so we start to move on these things when a crisis strikes, versus if only we were in front of that family. I've said this so many times, if only I had met them last month or the month prior to the crisis, because I think that we would all agree that when a crisis strikes, our emotions are screwed to the ceiling, and it's very difficult to come to a good outcome when all you're doing is grasping at support, versus when our logical mind is in charge and we're formulating a plan and getting all the information from what is private duty home care, what does Medicare home care do, what is an assisted living, what is a nursing home, what are those specific pieces, and then understanding that when and executing a plan when that situation or that crisis were to strike. So that's very much that that's the key to it all, and that's why we got very involved, and we're very excited about the Knowledge College for Aging, because a lot of times we're working with DCF, we're working with the emergency rooms of hospitals when the crises happen, and if we could get education in front of them and empower them, so it just removes some of the stigma and the fear around it, that it doesn't have to be a scary thing, it just has to be proactive and be prepared kind of thing.
Well, and that's really one of the points I think that is worth bringing out, is that when we talk about, I think you ask any fire person and they would tell you, if I'm going to respond to a person's house that's on fire, I'm going to do my best to put the fire out, but I sure wish this person would call me like 4 weeks in advance and say, why don't you come out and see if I have too many electrical cords plugged into one outlet, or I have an unsafe condition over here near the heater, or something like that. Right. I think any fire person would prefer to help you prevent the fire rather than put it out. And I know that's been the thought about knowledge colleges, and it's really the thought about what we do with helping seniors. We want these programs to get you thinking about steps on your aging plan. Now let's talk about that for a minute. If we're going to help somebody along that, you have a company called Soter LLC, and you said something years ago, in your company, you help people find good living solutions. It could be at home, but oftentimes it is in assisted living or some other scenario. But I remember something you said, and it's so strikingly clear. You had said nobody wakes up on a random Saturday morning and says, let's go check out retirement homes. It just doesn't happen. And yet you really want people to be thinking ahead about these things.
Right. Because I think everybody has the idea of, hey, everybody wants to stay home. And of course, you want to be home. That's where, all of your memories are. That's where all my stuff is. This is my house. But at some point, the house becomes dangerous.
Right.
And so we're at risk, but we fight and we dig our heels in to stay in that home. And the one thing that we've talked about before is, when you talk about, being isolated, a lot of times if they are starting to have the beginning stages of Alzheimer's or dementia, you don't want to say anything to your family because, I don't want to be a burden. Right. Or I don't want my kids to put me in one of them homes. So you have this idea in mind. And so you isolate and you don't tell anybody that you have these things happening or that you're declining in certain areas.
Right.
And then when the crisis does strike, the family wasn't even aware or your friends weren't aware. Right. And now you're just thrust into chaos, and you've got family coming in from out of state. You've got now a lot of the healthcare community coming in with, hey, you're going to need to do this, and you're going to need to do this, and you're going to need to, and it gets very overwhelming very quickly. Versus, like you said, just I understand that no, it's not exciting on a random family Saturday to go shopping for assisted living, but it doesn't hurt to understand at least what it does. What does that tool in the toolbox look like? What does it do?
Well, and there's another thought too, because this was actually, I think, another one of, I would call them Troyisms, but something you said along the way that's had a lot of impact. And you said, part of the problem for us on the consumer end of this is we don't really understand. We understand in the industry we have all these different designations: skilled nursing facilities, assisted livings, independent livings, memory care. There's all this, I would call it industry jargon. But for most of us, what we boil it down to is we call it the old folks' home. And the problem for us is what we're channeling as we remember that is we think about that place that as kids we went to see great-grandmother or great-grandfather, and it was a scary place.
That's right. I remember I grew up in rural Illinois. It was right in the Bible Belt, and one of those that we had one nursing home for 3 counties. And my grandmother was there, and I remember going in as a small child with my mom to go visit Grandma. And we walk in and we're going down the hallway, and and it was scary. You've got the off-white walls, the white tile floors, long hallways with a handrail that runs the whole hallway, and everybody kind of lined up behind each other in wheelchairs, kind of slunched over. And I remember as a little boy walking down that hallway, and it was like, okay, there's an old person, there's an old person, there's an old person, there's Grandma. And it was just kind of it left a mark. And so, yeah, everybody has that image of what senior living is. It has an image of what senior living, what nursing homes, what assisted livings are, but they don't understand that as, you know, cars have changed over the last 30 years,
Right.
you know, healthcare's changed too in a lot.
I was going to say, there was a car company that used to say, this is not your father's car. And I was going to say, that is really the point, isn't it? Is that what those memories, childhood memories that may not have been pleasant, it's not even a comparison today, is it?
No, I mean, you've got some of these communities, and just understanding, you know, what an assisted living is versus a nursing home or a skilled nursing facility, and understanding how they operate and what their license types are and what they can handle clinically. But yeah, it's just, it's trying to navigate all of these different pieces and trying to put them all together. Yeah.
You know, I was talking with one person who worked with a fairly large assisted living, and they said, you know, look, I said, what would you, they said one of the things that they would talk to people about, I said, well, what would you do if you won the lottery? And the person was, well, I would hire a cook, I would hire a chauffeur, I would hire a gardener, I would hire, you know, they start going through this list of things. I'd hire a trainer, I would, you know, so well, what do you think is available to you? You know, and so people do have to I guess, shed the old thinking because it's not accurate, right?
Correct.
And start looking at what is actually available. And we've seen some of these national commercials that say, oh, we'll help you find a place for dad or something like that. And they will say it's not what you think. They have bowling alleys, they have, you know, all these things. But it really has changed like that, hasn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, some of these communities, I mean, the ones that we're thinking of, the image that I had of where my grandmother was, there are communities here in Brevard County that, I mean, it rivals a cruise ship.
Absolutely.
I mean, you walk into them and you've got the chandeliers and the grand pianos and their waterfront glass running the whole back of the building, or they've got massive back porches where they've got multiple grills out there for big cookouts and a pool out there that's overlooking the river and the bridge, and it's stunning. I wish I had that view, you know, it just is, but that's, you know, so they're so different, and that's why I really am trying to be out there and trying to educate the community to get them to be proactive, because it's not what you're thinking. And to get in front of it, it's not as scary, and let's change the stigma of it, because what is branded in our minds as to what we saw our parents and our grandparents go through is not reality today. And so let's really get out there and let's change the idea, change the stigma, get some energy around the positive outcomes that can come by just exploring it versus staying isolated in our own home and suffering.
And that's, you know, we were just talking about this, that in a recent Helping Seniors survey that we did of the top 10 needs that seniors self-reported in Brevard County, you would understand that they would pick things like transportation or housing or medical care. One of the things that really was surprising to me was the need for better socialization. And so one of the things that I know you have talked about before, but I've seen it where a person, we think the person is going to be well because they're comfortable in their home, but what they end up doing is they're not eating right, they're sitting in front of a TV all day because there's no stimulation. The only time that something is different is if somebody pops in for a few minutes to visit. The rest of the time they are there, and that is the extent of their existence. And yet you take that same person who might otherwise seem to be on a downward kind of trek or spiral, you get them into the right kind of environment where there's things going on, there's activities, they're getting fed right, somebody's making sure the medications are going at the right time.
Correct.
And 4 or 5 weeks later, this person, instead of surviving, is truly thriving.
Right. You have purpose again. That's the whole thing. A lot of times when we get isolated in our homes, that's part of where the depression sets in, where I don't have a purpose anymore. I can't get out and do gardening, which I used to be passionate about. I can't tinker on the car or work on the car. I can't work in the wood shop like I used to out back because I can't stay up that long. You know, so you lose that sense of purpose, and so we get isolated and we stay at the TV because we're not getting put in one of those homes. We don't talk to our friends. We don't tell our family. We don't do things, and now the depression, we start to decline. And I mean, the whole point is, and I've said this to you before, you know, what is the worst punishment that you can have in prison? Solitary confinement.
Wow, wow. Yeah.
But we do it to ourselves out of pride. And it's just more about, you know, we as people, if you think back on the 10 greatest memories that you have in your life, they were all with someone. You didn't do these things alone.
Sure.
You didn't celebrate these things alone. You were with a group, or you were with family members, or you were with your significant other, your children, somebody. So if you don't have a goal, or you don't have at least a plan to be around others and around other people, that I can develop new experiences, new memories, new things. What's my purpose? And then you lose track of that, and then everything starts to come apart. And that's where getting into some of these communities, you know, people think, okay, well, I'm going to be locked in this place and they're never going to let me out, and I can't have my independence, when that's exactly the opposite of what happens. Is you thrive and are more independent because you want to do therapy, or you want to get out there to the dining room, or you want to go play cards, or go play pool, or go, you know, there's an event happening, you've got an acoustic guitarist coming into the building, and they're going to be playing for a couple of hours. You have celebrations of holidays that are very exciting. You've got birthdays of friends that come around, that every other family members are coming in, and you get to be a part of that scenario in that situation, versus watching Dr. Oz on television. I mean, it's apples and oranges of the human interaction, and it's not just about the clinical and financial stuff. It's about purpose, and it's about getting inspired in that next chapter of your life. I think everybody, and we've talked about this, they have this idea when I leave my home that I am now on to the last chapter of my life. And I always stop them and I go, break that psychology. It's just simply the next chapter. You've moved before, it's just moving again. You may find a new friend, multiple friends, you may find a new significant other. There's all kinds of things that can kind of transpire when you have other people around to interact with, that actually you have a give and take in a conversation, versus a television that will never talk to you back.
You know, it's a funny conversation that when you think about it, because if you go back, have you ever gone back and you visited like your elementary school or something, and then you go in there and you go, my goodness, the desks are small, this room is so small, and I remember it so much differently. But there's a truth to the fact that things are right for a certain time in your life. So we always talk about, you know, when you become an empty nester, then you think about downsizing. And so really what we're talking about, right, is having the right type of living accommodation for where your stage in life is.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly, and the care needs you have, because sometimes it just, maybe I get confused with the medications. Well, you don't want to mess up on some of them, you know, or I don't know how to refill them, or I've lost an ability, like I've lost the battery to the phone, or I've lost my hearing aid so I can't hear. Now I'm really trapped. And so there's so many layers to it, that if you just have somebody around that can help you out, or that you're interested in doing something with, it just changes everything when it comes to the outlook of your next day or next week, or it inspires you to push and to continue on living versus surviving.
Right. And one of the things, though, that I think also bears repeating in this conversation is the fact that once you start to open your mind to the possibility of doing something, then you really open the question of, like, how do I begin to wade through all this? Like I said, you could see these national ads which make it sound like call 1-800 and we'll figure out the right place for your relative. And yet I think when I see those ads, I said, do they really know my community? And I was shocked, folks, to find out, I think I'm using an old number. I thought found out there was 140 assisted livings right here in Brevard County, and I think you told me that's an outdated number.
That is, yeah. The last I checked, it was 154 that are here in Brevard County by itself.
Can you imagine 154 different possible locations to think about? So how would the average person even go about trying to figure out what to even rule in or rule out? And it seems like particularly if we didn't do the right planning and get up on that Saturday morning and start working on this program ahead of time, and maybe now because of a hospitalization we're sort of up against the wall and we got to make stuff happen quick, now the pressure is really on.
Right. And that's the thing, there's a lot of national conglomerates that have a very good web presence, that if you type in assisted living Brevard or assisted living Indian River County or whatever, and what happens is a lot of the SEO of this major organization has come in and kind of occupied that space. And it's trying to navigate through that. Now you have a senior living advisor calling you from a company you didn't know that you were attaching yourself to, and they're blasting your information across 10 to 20 different communities, and now you have all the marketing teams calling into you, versus having somebody that is boots on the ground in your backyard to be able to help understand what your specific story is, what your specific needs are clinically, where you are financially, and help eliminate a lot of the guesswork and help to kind of navigate those. Because 150 options, like you said, where do I start? Where do I find this information?
You wouldn't even know where to begin.
Well, folks, I can tell you right now, if you're in the state of Florida, there's a website called floridahealthfinder.gov. Again, I'll repeat that, floridahealthfinder.gov. That is a place to start. You can. It's run by ACA, the Agency for Healthcare Administration. Okay, they have a list of all of those licensed facilities that are here in the state of Florida. That's a place to start. But again, what you're getting is a name, an address, and a phone number. Some very basic information. There's not a whole lot of meat on the bone, but now you know what the 154 number is. And you don't know, okay, am I navigating, is this a 100-bed community that's more like an apartment style living? Or is this a 5-bed assisted living that many people think of as a group home? And again, now you go back to that bad story, you go back to the image of a group home from years ago.
Right.
There are some fantastic group homes that are out here in our backyard. It's just knowing what your specific needs are and how they fit. I've said this before. When you walk into a Ben & Jerry's, never having eaten ice cream, and you walk up to the glass and there's 30 different flavors of ice cream behind that glass, how does the person behind the glass on the other side of the counter tell you what you like?
That's great.
Well, you don't know. There's got to be a give and take, because strawberry tastes very different than chocolate chip cookie dough.
Sure,
you know. So you gotta kind of navigate what their specific interests are, what they like. You know, because there are a lot of things in common, like assisted living. There are licensures that say, okay, you can do this in this type of community, or you have a financial pieces, but like ice cream, it's all cold. All of it, okay? So there's some things that are in common. A lot of them are made with sugar. Now they've got all this vegan stuff and all this other things where maybe they're not sugar and they're sugar-free. But there are commonalities. But again, the flavor is very different.
And your point really is that the same thing is you really benefit when you're able to talk to somebody locally, because you and your team at Soter LLC, because you're local, this is what you know. You know all these locations here. You've been out. You've inspected them. Somebody asks you a question. You don't have to look it up. We usually laugh and say, "Well, if it's on the internet, it must be true." but in this case, you've actually put eyeballs on these places, and you know the people who are there, and what you have a good sense for where you can steer somebody that's going to be the right fit for them. Because isn't that another problem? Suppose you move into a place, and then 3 months later, like, wow, this is not the right fit. Now they got to go through everything and try to find a better situation and all that. And it seems like...
And it's very costly.
Yes.
Because there's community fees involved. There's a move to have all my stuff moved here. It's all the paperwork. It's getting the doctor coordinated. It's all of the pieces of moving.
Right.
Moving is moving. It's a pain. Nobody really enjoys moving. If you enjoy moving, then you can come over to my place and I got some stuff.
Move stuff. So you really want to do this well the first time. And a lot of times, as you know, people are thrust into this when they didn't get the chance to plan correctly. I was telling you the story of, if you're at a hospital and they're going to discharge mom and they throw this book at you and say, well, where do you want mom to go for physical therapy? And we can't tell you because we're not supposed to tell you which one to pick.
We can't have favorites,
you can pick out of this book. And I was asking you before the show, could people call you and get some advice on even those kind of things?
100%. That's what we do. We are a Soter Senior Living and Family Advocate. So we advocate for families in general. If they're trying to navigate and need to understand, a specific type of skilled nursing facility, otherwise known as a nursing home, but a type of skilled nursing facility, understanding what diagnosis got you into the hospital, and when you're being discharged, the length of time rehab's going to take. There are specific skills that are very good at X, but maybe not as good at Y. And then there are others that are really good at Y. And so it's just having done this for over the past 8 years,
right,
specifically in this role, we've developed a lot of relationships outside of just the assisted living environment and of understanding and having relationships and knowing who's good at what, but it's also understanding skilled nursing facilities, private duty home care companies, Medicare skilled home care companies, and just sitting down with a family and figuring out, where are you? What's the goal? Where are we headed? And organizing and developing a short-term strategy and a long-term plan.
And here's the real part, viewer, to think about. What would getting this help cost you? It would seem like it would be so valuable to have this kind of help when you're trying to make these complex decisions. And yet you come to the families and there's no charge.
There's no charge. We have developed a program and have been now in contract with over 2,100 assisted living facilities in all 50 states.
Wow.
And so with that, as somebody, that's how we are compensated.
You can help people get to the right place and have the research to back it up. We're just about out of time. I want to make sure that we get a chance to get your telephone number in so people can call you and get connected to some of the associates at Soter. What is that phone number?
The phone number of our office is area code 321, if you're here, 419-0041. And our website is www.sotercares.com, and I'll spell that. It's S as in Sam, O-T-E-R, cares, C-A-R-E-S.com. And you can find us there. There is a database to be able to start to do some investigation with some pictures of different assisted livings in different areas. But that would be the best way to call us.
Good. Yeah. Let's get in touch with Soter Cares. I'm Kerry Fink for Helping Seniors TV.
Thank you.
Steckler, thank you for joining our program today. I'd like to remind you that our senior information line is available to you at 321-473-7770. There you can get help and direction that could be helpful for your specific situation or circumstances. The work of helping seniors is very important, but we can't do it alone. That is why our sponsors here in Brevard County are so important. I'd like to thank our many area sponsors, businesses, and medical providers who support the mission of helping seniors that help us carry the cost of our media efforts. If you'd like to join us either as a business partner or simply donate as an individual, we would welcome your call at 321-473-7770. You are always welcome to visit our website at www.helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. Thanks so much for your help. It does make a difference.